Joining me now from Kyiv is CNN Global Affairs analyst Michael BOCIURKIW. He's also a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
So, despite dire warnings from the White House and the Pentagon that funding for Ukraine is fast running out, we have seen congressional inaction. What happens if the US fails to pass sufficient military support for the war-torn nation before the end of the year? What would be the consequences of that?
Well, the feeling on the ground here is absolutely disastrous. What we're talking about, Rosemary, is $61 billion. To put things into perspective, that is almost the total amount of aid given by the U.S. to Ukraine since the start of the war. This money is needed, especially for weaponry, long-range missiles, artillery. Also, that money would go towards budget support, for example, helping Ukraine pay pensions and teachers' salary, and also humanitarian aid. Look, what people have to understand as well is that the money that the U.S. gives is not going unaccounted for in pallets and flown into Ukraine. A lot of that money actually stays in the United States and goes to defense companies to build the kit that Ukraine needs. And the other thing we have to understand is that less than 4% of the U.S. defense budget has gone to destroy 50% of Russian conventional military capability. So if you ask me, that's a very good deal.
And the urgent message from the White House, essentially out of money, out of time, appears not to have resonated with those Republicans who oppose additional aid for Ukraine. So what message might work, given they say it's time to secure the U.S. southern border instead of helping Ukraine?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you the message that will work, and this will affect every American. If Ukraine does not win this war, which is really not a Ukraine-Russia war, it's a global war, a dictatorship intent on grabbing territory against the rules-based international order. If Ukraine is unsuccessful in pushing Mr. Putin back, every consumer, every American in the United States will feel it either through higher gas prices, higher food prices, more instability because of more migration. This war will definitely widen. So that's the message the Ukrainians are giving. I support their wording on this. I believe what we know from Mr. Putin, that's exactly what he will do. It would become extremely costly, extremely destabilizing.
And if the U.S. doesn't step up, who will?
Well, look, as you know, there's a lot of change in governments in this neighborhood in Europe, Poland, Hungary, elsewhere. But I think you'll still have strong support from the United Kingdom, from France. And, you know, Rosemary, I said a long time ago on CNN near the start of the war, the Ukrainians are ready to go this alone. Probably the Baltic countries will help out as much as they can. But there's no way the resources will be sufficient to win this war. Already, we're seeing the economy here start to go on a downward trend. There's questions raised as recently as last night about how many of those millions of Ukrainians are actually going to come back here. So it's so important to win this as soon as possible.
And you mentioned Russia's president. What do you think Putin is thinking right now as he watches this play out in the United States?
Well, look, he's sitting back, applauding, smirking, laughing, because he sees two wars, this one and the Israel-Hamas war, which are causing massive destabilization. And meantime, we know very well that the Russians are busy preparing for another assault because winter is here in Ukraine. They'll probably be attacking critical infrastructure again. And they're very, very busy as well, mobilizing the global south against what I referred to earlier as this rules-based international order. So this plays exactly into his playbook. And one more thing, of course, he's probably looking at next November. And if Trump gets in, that will be disastrous for Ukraine, too, because he'll probably try and make a deal that will not be in Ukraine's favor.
Michael BOCIURKIW, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.